Good morning, workflowy peeps. Thought I'd make a quick video of where I'm at in the process, so just kind of in the live streaming genre, without actually live streaming. So this is typically how my process development goes. By the way, it's too early in the morning and I haven't had enough coffee to turn the lights on. So I'm going to leave it dark, even though that's showing up dark on the video. So I'm a very slow processor in some ways, especially when it comes to development work. Usually I have a kind of a flash of insight or a picture of something, and then have to slowly creep my way towards the picture I see. So in this case, I had this flash of insight into this system, the fractal system. And saw I have several modules I've created, but have known that several modules I've created in my systems, my flywheels and workflows and that kind of thing. I use GTD and Scrum, but I've known they haven't been sufficient, and I've had this very vague, kind of foggy picture in my mind. Actually, I drew it out. See if I can capture this on the screen. Drew it out a while back. This was a few years ago. I don't know if it'll show up. So, yeah, so this picture right here. Yeah, there we go. So that picture is something I've kind of lived with for several years, maybe 6 or 7 years, and knew it represented something, but never could quite see what that would look like in actuality, like in daily practice, until a few weeks ago. And I kind of had this jarring, stunning flash of insight about how to accomplish it, and now it's the hard work of figuring out what is that actually, like putting that into practice. So I just kind of creep my way forward. I really thoroughly enjoy it, so I'm not in a big rush. This is one of my favorite things to do, is develop a new system, so I'm just enjoying it. So what it looks like is me just starting to capture ideas. So, this is just my brainstorms that I've had, and then inside of some of those are, more development. And so I've got two prongs to what I'm doing that I'm trying to implement. One is deploying my project management flywheel and converting it into a personal time management flywheel and figuring out what that looks like. And then there's another aspect of it that's actually from a company I'm developing with a friend, so I can't talk too much about it because it's proprietary to that company, but what I'm going to be applying is going to be different, so that's not proprietary. I just can't talk about it too much till I develop it. But essentially, the primary concept of that system is I'll be building my week 4 times in a particular format, and it's in one aspect of it is it's in the form of a Fibonacci spiral, in terms of looking at things at different scales, like different horizons and different levels of detail. And so that's something I'll be developing. But right now I'm focused on integrating a form of my project management flywheel into converting it into a time management flywheel. So here's my project management flywheel. I open up all my documents associated with the project, and then I update my notes and integrate them into the system. And as I'm doing that, I'm taking more notes, because as I integrate my notes and update my documents, it generates more thoughts and more insight into the project. So I take notes, and then I integrate those notes back into the system, and I keep on kind of spiraling in on more and more detail until I'm done that day, either because I've run out of notes I've taken or my time's up. So that's kind of the concept behind the project management flywheel. My Gantt chart gets updated, my communication with my customers, my finances get updated, and then I actually do the actual work, make the phone calls and that kind of stuff. So in attempting to figure out what would that look like in a non-project situation, having more to do with planning my week and planning my days, this is what I've come up with so far. And it won't look like this eventually. It'll be a lot more efficient. But basically what I did over the weekend so far is I've been doing my typical Scrum planning, GTD, UCD processing and integration. And as I'm doing it, I'm taking notes in this, actually on a piece of paper in part, and some in Workflowy. And kind of feeling my way forward to figure out what's the efficient way to create a flywheel here. And I already have a flywheel for my Scrum planning, but this is different. This is integrating a different perspective of trying to get a deeper and deeper view into the week. So I'll just kind of read through this list and talk about it. So one critical concept, I can't go into it too much because it would take a long time to explain, but in order to analyze a system, you have to have what I call a hit print iteration of that system. It can't be in process, it has to be finalized at a, to create a baseline snapshot of a system, or in this case of a week. So basically I develop my thinking on the week and plan the week in terms of Scrum and in terms of my weekly flywheel. And so here, I don't know why it's turned sideways, but I've got a notebook that I carry with me every place, and in there there's the shape of my week. And this is Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I lay out my weeks like I think they are going to go. And I keep on pushing on developing my week until I think I've really captured my best take on what the week is going to look like. And then I take a baseline snapshot, literally a picture of it, or I scan it into Evernote or whatever. And then I also capture my sprint plan. So everything that I've put into my sprint plan, I copy and paste. And so what this is a baseline view of my week from Saturday's perspective that I think is accurate. It's not, but I think it is the best I know how to do on Saturday as far as looking at my week. So I just did this for the first time, so I can't go backwards in time to analyze it, but that'll be the first thing, is review last week's logs and snapshots of baseline plan. And then as I go through my week, I'll be checking off my sprint tasks that I get done, and I will be updating my notebook, my weekly calendar in ink. So I'd put it down in pencil as my plan, and then I put down in ink my actual, but since I've captured a snapshot of what I thought my week was going to look like on Saturday, I can then compare on Friday or the following Saturday. I can bring those both up and look at them to see how they were different or whether I was accurate. So anyway, review last week's log so I can learn from last week to figure out where am I going wrong? What am I typically not capturing or seeing on Saturday, so I can learn for the next iteration. So from there, I do a preliminary calendar sync with Gracie I use Google Calendar and she uses a paper calendar, so we just sync those up once a week to make sure I have everything that I need to know from her perspective. So I do just a quick 5-minute discussion with her. Then I update something I call unprocessed inventory, which are the tasks that I can immediately do that I'm not waiting on anybody else for. Review, I won't explain what this is, but it's just kind of a longer view of what my opportunities are coming up over the next quarter. Okay, and then I transfer my hard landscape from my calendar, my Google Calendar, to my paper-based weekly calendar that I'm building. So I start out there. I'm doing these things in order to understand what my hard landscape is. So I won't know my hard landscape unless I make sure I know what events my wife has planned for us or something, or something she needs from me on the calendar. Okay, so I update all that so I can do a preliminary hard landscape and embed that in my paper calendar. This is going to be changing over time as I create a template for my projects. I've got a template for my project management projects, but now I'm doing more hands-on work, so I'm working on a template for that. And this is a whole other kind of a different system, or maybe a component of this system, but I'm creating a system to enable me to be very, very accurate in my predictions for how long jobs are going to take and what I'll be doing each day. That's similar to what I'm doing with my general time management. Then I update my work Gantt charts. But as I'm doing these things, as I'm doing each thing, I've got my notebook beside me, and I'm taking notes of things that come to mind. And so as I'm updating my job calendar, that might remind me of something I need to do while I'm in town. So I write that down so I make sure that gets reintegrated into the system. Update my Gantt charts and my calendars for projects. Take a look at my current and potential and actual jobs on my workflowy list. Then, because now I've captured a bunch of tasks that I'm going to be needing to be aware of, then I do my preliminary Scrum planning and put tasks into my sprint. I update my flywheels, update finances, because that's another aspect of my wanting to build my week. I also want to build my week financially. When am I going to be spending money? So I make better decisions if I plan out my spending than if I just spend whatever I want to. A lot better decisions. And then I've already had my hard landscape, like the actual events and meetings and stuff that I put on my paper-based calendar. Now I go ahead, take my Scrum planning and my flywheels, and do time chunking on that paper-based calendar. When am I going to do the tasks that are on my Scrum plan? And that's that correlation between Scrum planning and the shape of my week. Guess I'll switch those around. So I may put stuff in my Scrum plan preliminarily, but then when I'm actually plugging those things into my week, realize I don't have, once I put time chunks in for all the important tasks I need to for sure do and build those around my hard landscape of my events and meetings, that reveals how much time I have in my week. So I say preliminary. Scrum planning, and then as I'm building the shape of my week, that reveals that I'm not the things that I'm not going to have time to work on in my Scrum plan. So I can remove the sprint tag from those tasks, because if I'm not going to get them done, I don't want them in my sprint plan. So I kind of go back and forth with my Scrum plan and the shape of my week, and make sure I have all the things that I'm planning on doing in my Scrum in the shape of my week, or I remove them from my Scrum plan and kind of go back and forth until I get a decent grasp of my job. This sounds complicated. It's not. I mean, for me, because I've been doing a lot of this stuff already, it's kind of second nature. But that, doing my Scrum plan, especially now that I'm not project managing, is pretty straightforward. It takes me, maybe 20 minutes to kind of go through all of my tasks from all my projects and flywheels and put them into my sprint plan. And then this does take, maybe half an hour or so to build out my schedule. And then to realize, okay, to kind of scroll through my sprint plan and just alt select the tags to explode them for the ones that I realize I'm not going to do. You're looking at maybe an hour or so to do my weekly plan right there. If you've seen my video about Canvas moments, this would be a time that I'm going to spend some time thinking through, do I have any Canvas moments that I'm working towards, and how, and are the tasks associated with those Canvas moments in here? And if they're not, I need to either decide to put them in or leave them off. And then I have a more thorough meeting with my wife, so we can talk about, here's what I think I'm going to be doing this week. Is there anything I'm missing? Make sure she's in alignment with my plan for the week. And that's actually really important. I can't overstate. And this is more just a personal topic, and it may apply to other people, but often Gracie may say, hey, there's this event on Thursday night. Do we want to go to it? And this little TMI maybe, but often the kind of thought landscape, or my thought life, is extremely colorful and active and really high energy. So what's going on in my head is incredibly colorful to me. And so often Gracie will be talking and I will be having this very lively engagement with her in my head, but not saying anything. And I don't even realize I'm not talking. So she'll talk, she'll talk for 5 or 10 minutes, and then she'll just kind of sit quietly, and I'm thinking happily. And she'll say, well, what do you think? You haven't answered. And I'm surprised that I haven't answered. So anyway, so because of that kind of internal dialogue that's so active, like a lot of times when we're doing calendar planning or things like events or goals, I won't respond to her, and I won't even be aware that I haven't responded to her. So this is an opportunity for her to, that we call it the club meeting, when the two of us meet to discuss things. And so she may say, hey, I want to go to this event on Thursday. This would be the time when we finalize that decision, where it's kind of the question is called. A lot of times I'm not going to want to go because I love to be at home. I've been at work all week, and I love my house. I love being around my family at the house. And so a lot of times I'm not necessarily craving going out again. But this would be the time for us to get into alignment. And so cut down on future conflict and just, either tell her, that's not something I'm really interested in doing. Or like I did yesterday with her, I said, there's this event actually tonight. If you want to go to it, we'll go. I mean, I'm not personally, like, I wouldn't necessarily go myself, but if you want to go, I'll go, and so that kind of gets us into alignment on things I want to do and get her feedback, and things she want to do, and she can get my feedback, and kind of finalize some decisions instead of leaving them for later. potential conflict when the day comes and I haven't really ever decided. And I finally tell her I don't want to go, and then she's disappointed or whatever. We can kind of reach all those decisions earlier when it's not in the moment of decision, right before we're leaving or something. So once we finalize that, then finalize my weekly and sprint planning and capture a snapshot. So that's my weekly planning. And then as I'm going through, I have a log in my notebook. And the question is, am I doing what I intended to do right now? So once I have my time chunks established, then the question is, if I'm not doing what I intended to do, I just want to know why. That's fine. I can do whatever. But because I've done a more thorough job in planning, I at least have a context in which to make that decision. And so I realize, if I have an hour set aside for an important task and I end up making a YouTube video for the workflow user group, right now actually I'm in margin, so I'm using it to make this video, I'll have a context in which to make that decision. So that's important for me to have that context, because I don't natively build a context in my mind. It has to be kind of external, the way my brain works. So that's I actually have this log, and I already have a few items where the question is, am I doing what I intended to do right now? If not, why not? And if I am, what created, especially if I'm doing what I intended to do and it's not something I would naturally do or naturally want to do, what was the environment or inertia shift, that tool that I used to put myself into position to do that? So what helped me be successful at doing that? And so I'll keep a log of that, and then each week I'll debrief that log to figure out, okay, what's working, what's not working in those times when I wasn't doing what I intended to do. What can I embed in my upcoming week in similar situations to encourage and nurture more successfully implementing my plan? So that's my daily time management flywheel. And I'm also going to be, as I get 3 days into the week, I'm going to have more information. I'm going to see where I'm at, and I can adjust the upcoming 4 days to get a more detailed snapshot in the week coming up. And I also have printed off 4-week calendars, so I can start to build out my weeks going, further into the future, and see how far I can extend that planning. But yeah, I'll be adjusting it daily as I see, so and so called and they don't have time to meet this week, so I can remove that from my sprint plan and then remove that event from my calendar if I'd planned on meeting somebody and that kind of thing, so I can get more and more accurate as I go along. And then the rest of this is just brainstorms. And so I'll be reviewing these brainstorms in order to capture these ideas and embed them in my systems. And so there's just a bunch of things that I think will affect this system. So that's where I stand. Got my first iteration of my 2 flywheels. So that's a start. I feel much more prepared for this week than I would have otherwise. Otherwise, I would have just done my Scrum planning. I would have had my hard landscape that's on my calendar, so I would have stayed aware of that, but I wouldn't have had time chunks necessarily. I wouldn't have modified my sprint plan and been aware of the things I'm not going to do this week. So I just feel like I'm much more contextually aware of my week this week, and that I think is going to be very helpful. And this is just the start. There's a lot more work I have to do to develop my thinking on the fractal time management system, but I just thought I would do a half-awake live stream-ish for you guys to see where I'm at in the process. But this is what me developing a system always looks like. It's just me kind of creeping my way forward, trying things out, seeing if I can figure out the next step. And I imagine it's really going to take me a few months to get a initial version of what I'm attempting to do here. So I'll keep you posted.